Hey viewers, welcome back to Rena Knits. So, have you ever thought about cables? I'm not talking about the TV cable. Check out today's video about the various different designs that you could use in your projects. These are all cable designs. So, this is going to be several videos that will be posted this week, but they will talk about the various different cables that you could use. Today, I'm just simply going to explain what a cable is and how to actually make a left to right and a right to left cable. Tomorrow's video is all about braids, and then the day after, it's all about baskets. So definitely keep checking out my channel. Keep checking out these videos to figure out what kind of a design you can use for your projects to make that look more elaborate and more exciting. In order to do cable design, you need another needle to hold the stitches. Now there are cable needles that are out there that just look like double pointed needles. Some of them have a little bit of a loop that allows you to hold the stitches there so that they don't fall off the needles themselves. I usually just use the stitch holder simply because I'm holding off the stitches until I knit them, and then I just move them back onto my needle when it's time for me to knit them. So you basically just need something that could hold your stitches while you're doing the cable design itself. And you want to make sure that you don't lose your stitches. That's why the stitch holder, because it blocks, so therefore I don't have to worry about losing my stitches as well. If you're deciding to add cable design to your project, what you want to do, one, is to make sure you've given it enough space before starting the cable design. As you can see here, if you don't, it has a tendency to fold in. If you're deciding to add cable design to a sweater or to a hat, at least leave about 1.5 inches of border before you start the cable design in order to prevent the fold from happening. The other thing I found is that when you're doing a cable design, rather than doing a knit design pattern on the cable, use a stockinette pattern, because what happens with the stockinette is that it is able to show the pattern, show the cable design better than if you had done the knit pattern onto the cable design itself. So here you could see that I'm using stockinette here and just knit here. The other thing that you want to keep note of is that when you're doing a cable design, keep a bit of a distance between each fold, simply because too tight a cable design you will lose out on seeing the cables themselves as clearly. Now the more you want to keep loose, then the more spacing you put between, but in this case I put in about 3 knits between each cable. So I have three knitting steps between each curve that I bring in. Keep watching as we talk about how to actually use your cable needle to create the cables for your various designs. For the cable design, there are various different versions. What I'm going to be showing here is how to do a left cable and a right cable. In this one, the fold is going from left to right, and this one it's going from right to left. What I'm doing here is I've just cast on 21 stitches. So your first row, so when you're ready to do the cable design itself, your first row, which is the right side, would be the actual design itself. So I have, what you would do then is take a stitch holder, and I'm doing 4 to 4, so I have 8. So depending on how thick you want your cable, you would use that many stitches, and it's going to be an even number. So I'm using 4 to 4. You could use 3 to 3 or 2 to 2 or even bigger, 5 to 5 and so forth. But this one is a 4 to 4 design. So I'm going to take 4 stitches and move them to the front of my design, of my project. And then I'm going to knit 4. Then I'm going to take my 4 that I've put aside and bring it back onto my working needle. And then I'm going to knit these. And that's it for this. And then I'm just going to move on to my other cable, which is going from left to right. So the first one we did was going from right to left. In this one we're doing left to right. Again, I have 8 stitches that I'm working with. I'm going to take the first 4 and put it in my stitch holder. But this time I'm going to put this on the back of my project rather than the front, and then knit my 4. Then I'm going to take those 4 stitches and move them back onto my working needle. And then I'm going to knit these. I'm going to finish up my row. So your first row is when you make the actual fold itself. So going from right to left, you bring the 4 that you put aside, the first 4 that you put aside in the front of the project, and then going from left to right, you take the first 4 and move it to the back of your project. The back side, or row 2, which is the wrong side, I would basically just purl. So I would purl the 8 stitches that I'm using for my cable. Now, for the next 6 rows, I'm just basically going to do the same. I'm going to just knit, then purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. And this is to give it enough room so that I could do the next fold. So this is row 3, which is all knit. Would be all purl. All knit again.
Row 4. Row 5.
Row 7 would be all purl. And the last 2 rows, so again another complete knit. And row 9, all purl. And now again we would do the same as row 1 and 2. So for row 1, you would take the number of stitches that you're using. You would take the half of those. So in my case, I'm going to take 4. Move them onto my stitch holder and put them in the front. And then I'm going to knit 4. I'm going to move the ones that I had on my stitch holder back onto my working needle. And then knit them. And then moving on to the next cable, which is the right to left rather than left to right. I'm going to take my 4 stitches, move them on my stitch holder, and move these to the back instead of the front, so the back of my project, while I knit the 4. Then I'm going to move these back onto my working needle and knit them. And then finish off my row. So you would pretty much do this as long as for the amount of length you want your cable, and you would get this design where this is going from right to left and this is going from left to right. I hope you liked this video. If you did, definitely click on that like button, and if you're new, welcome. Do subscribe so you'll be alerted of videos posted every week on various different knitting styles, designs, projects, and history. Until next time, relax, enjoy, and keep knitting.